Okay, welcome back to Monday Night Mishlei. I was going to do, if there were evidently new people here, I was gonna do a review of our method, but I don't think there's a need to. So let's just get started with this pasuk, okay? And we have a difficult one for tonight, a difficult reading, okay? Tocheles tzadikim simcha, v'tikvas reshaim toved. Who wants to be our taking the first stab person? Tocheles is weird. If you don't know Tocheles, then don't feel bad. In fact, so much don't feel bad that I actually took a picture of the Torah dictionary. So Tocheles is a word for hope. Does not seem to be the most common word, but it means hope. Okay, so now does anyone want to try translating?
Isn't like Tehila, like Tehila, is this similar to like Tehila, like to start off?
I
Or
don't think so. I don't think so. And I don't know any other word that we're familiar with that this is related to. So no one? I guess let's see who Isaac was usually the one who started us, or Mayan or Sarah, and they're all not here. So someone's gonna have to step up to the plate. Or we'll sit here in silence for an hour and a half.
Can I see the Torah
Yeah.
translation again?
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess we have to figure out like the differentiation between that and tikva.
Okay, maybe we'll see. Okay, let's just try translating. Just get a basic translation. We'll modify it later. Who wants to go?
well, I guess tzaddikim can hope for simcha, for joy, happiness.
Okay. Tzaddikim can hope for joy. Okay. Let's go a little bit more conservative instead of putting the word can, because it doesn't say the word can there.
Seek it.
Doesn't say seek either.
Hope of tzaddikim.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Thank you. Hope of tzaddikim.
Okay.
Okay. Now, you could say joy. Now, in Hebrew, we do not have a word for is, so you can put a bracketed is in there without like violating rules. Okay, so hope of tzaddikim is joy. Okay, and let's just say here, hope of tzaddikim, which yeah, we don't need to translate that right now. We can probably do that later. Okay, the tikvas reshaim toved.
And the hope of Rishaim will destroy. It will destroy.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Will. So Toved is a little weird, right? So it will. This is one where someone who knows better Hebrew grammar can help me here. But so avad definitely means to destroy. What else can avad mean?
Will
like
To lose. Okay. Right. And the third one. You got to remember. Students have to remember their Shirashim quizzes because we have three.
perish.
Perish. Right. Perish, destroy, or lose. Right. Okay. So we'll lose, perish, or destroy. Okay. Now the reason why I hesitated when the translation of when Avital said destroy is I don't know if it's will be destroyed, be lost, or perish, or if it will destroy, lose, or perish. I don't know the difference between toved and like other forms of that verb. Okay. So it might be like, you know what? In fact. Yeah, let's do this. Okay, let's see. I don't remember how the English translations translated it. Let's just go for them now, and then we'll go back to our minimalist ones. The expectation of the righteous is gladness. Okay, but the wicked will be shortened. That's weird. Okay, I'm not a fan of that one. But they do say expectation. Okay, Living Nach says the righteous can anticipate joy. Okay, but the hope of the wicked is dashed. The longing of the righteous is a joy, but the hope of the wicked will perish. So I'm going to go ahead and assume that they know how to learn grammar, and that we should translate this as will perish / be lost / be destroyed. Okay. Let's do that. Okay, and then let's do what we usually do, which is to look at our minimalist commentators here. So Sadigon just says Tocheles hatzadikim lisimcha. He says the hope of the tzaddikim is for joy. And then the Targum said, so Avigal said earlier, okay, we need to figure out what the difference is between Tocheles and Tikva. Okay, so I knew someone was going to say that. I didn't know who. And what is our, just because we're going to review methodology here, what is our general approach to things like that? or here, I'll ask the question in a less us focused way. What is the consensus among Mefarshim when you have two words that mean that are different but mean the same thing in a Mishlei pasuk?
Well, I mean, I know you like it. You like that. You know, you like it because it's just a different way of writing.
Yeah. So let me yeah, right. Let me expand on what Ariel's saying. So you basically have a machlokus between the Malbim and Rav Hirsch on one side, and then literally everybody else on the other side. Okay, as a universal machlokus. Okay, and the machlokus is over the question of, are there such things as synonyms in Hebrew? Okay, and I guess combined with that methodologically, it's according to the Malbim. I can't speak for Rav Hirsch because I'm not familiar with his commentary on Mishlei, but this is a very Hirschian thing. But the Malbim holds not only are there no such things as synonyms, but every nuance in the Hebrew is essential to the idea. Okay, so the Malbim is going to say, and we can look at the Malbim later on if we want, Tochelis is a different idea than Tikva. Everyone else acknowledges that there can be differences, but that it's also fine to say Kafel Hadavar b'milos shonos. That's the Metzudas David's favorite phrase. Is it repeats itself in different words. And like Ariel said, why do you do that? To switch it up a bit, okay? Because that's what we do in English also. Like that's why we have thesauruses, right? Is that there's lots of different words for each thing, and especially in a proverb, it looks weird if you, or it can look weird if you just like. It'll make it bland if you just repeat the same word again and again, right? My AP English students know that you shouldn't use the same word twice in the same sentence or even paragraph or even essay. And the reason why I'm pointing this out now is look what the Targum does, okay? And remember, this is not Targum Onkelos, this is another Targum. Sibrahon de tzadiki chedvasa, the hope of the righteous is joy. The sivra de rashia neved, and the hope of the wicked will perish. So he uses the same shoresh, okay, sivra, right? I don't know why he puts it in plural possessive here and in singular here, but I just want to show you that it's not just me, okay? It's the Targum also. So what we're going to do, so the stance that we take in this in our analysis is we treat synonyms as synonyms, but if you can find a nuance and back it up and if it contributes to the idea, great. If not, we're not going to lose sleep over it. Okay. Okay. So now that we've gotten any questions on just the translation, just in terms of making sense of it, and if not, we'll move on to our listing our questions phase. I'm going to go ahead and delete these because I think that ours encompasses them. Okay. And let's just keep Saudi on here just in case we need him. Okay. So what are the questions here? Questions and problems, major and minor.
What is the hope that it's referring to?
Okay, what hope is it referring to on both sides, right? And I guess you can ask, yeah, okay, fine. Let's put it that way. Feel free to elaborate on the question if you feel elaboration is warranted, or related questions, or new questions.
How will it be joy or be perished?
Okay, so because the wording is ambiguous for the first half, I'm trying to think of a way that we could word the question that encompasses all translations, because we have hope of tzaddikim is for joy or is joy, right? So let's just put it this way.
How will each outcome come about?
Say again, Shira?
How will each outcome come about?
See, I don't even know if it's an outcome, right? Because it could be saying that they hope for joy, right? Or it could be saying that their hope will bring joy. So let's just put this in the broadest terms possible for now, okay? What is the relationship between the hope of tzaddikim? Sorry, the hope of tzaddikim and joy, okay? Is joy what they are hoping for? Or is it the outcome? Is joy the outcome of their hope? Okay. And if the latter, now I'll say what you said, Shira. And if the latter, how will the joy come about? Okay. Hold on a second. If the former, let's just break it all down. Okay. If the former, what is this joy? And if the latter, how will this joy come about? Is that, we can tweak it if we need.
You can also ask what is it tzaddik and the rasha in this
Yeah.
pasuk?
Okay, good. Actually, before we go on to that, I just want to, I am going to make an effort to try to highlight methodology more. I just want to show you what happened there, okay? What happened there was we had people ask different versions of the question about the hope of the tzaddikim is for joy or is joy. And what I was trying to do is if you lock yourself into a certain way of reading the pasuk in your question, you're not going to see the other ways of reading it while you're looking at your list of questions. So what I tried to do is I tried to expand the question in a way that encompasses multiple readings so that when we're looking at our questions, we can keep that, we can retain that flexibility, you know, and that's like, you know, it's like, it would be analogous to, this is a bad analogy, but it's the first thing that comes to my mind. Like if you are, you know, looking for a criminal suspect, let's say like someone, you know, broke into a house in Far Rockaway, like, I know it's a weird example. And like someone, an eyewitness, like, you know, had one of those, what do you call the people who sketch like, profile artists? I don't know what you call them, but right, who sketches the, what the suspects looks like. And if they get it wrong, or if they emphasize a certain feature, which is not, you know, shouldn't be emphasized. So that'll send people with that rigid image in their mind looking for that suspect. But sometimes it's better to err on the side of vagueness or multiplicity so that you can keep your mind open, you know. So that's just what happened there. Sketch artist, thank you. Okay, so Ariel then says our classic question, which is a classic question for chapter 10, right? Which is what are the definitions? I'm just going to combine it into one because we're too lazy now. What are the definitions of tzaddik and rasha in this context? And by the way, I know we had this motion at the end of the year that wouldn't be great if we finished the parak, but I'll tell you what, I'm actually grateful that we did not finish the parak, because if you remember, those who were here last time, the last like 2 months, every pasuk we did had a tzaddik and a rasha in it, and it got very, very hard to see things fresh. And so what I'm hoping is that like no one remembers what, you know, not that no one remembers, but that we can look at this with fresh eyes, even though it's like right next to all these psukim that have to do with tzaddik and rasha. Okay, we only have a few more tzaddik and rasha psukim, and then we're going to be into new topics. So hopefully that'll be good. Okay, what else?
Did we ask what is the joy, or who is the joy for?
Yeah, so we said, what is the joy? We kind of combined that all into one question. What is the joy? And how will it come about? Did you say who is it for? Oh, that's a good question. That was a good question.
Yeah,
okay.
but that's
what is
and that comes under your more general.
Yeah, no, but I like adding that because are the tzaddikim hoping for their own joy, or are they hoping to bring joy to other people? Yeah, this is kind of a jam-packed question. I feel like we got to bullet point it. Actually, let's not do that because I'm too lazy right now. Okay, I'm only this is a physiologically induced laziness. It's very hot in this room, and so it's just making me it's manifesting as not wanting to like type more. Okay, what else?
Yeah, I mean, this might be similar to number one. But what is hope specifically?
Good question. Okay, yeah.
What?
Yeah, what? Yeah, so you know what? Actually, I'm gonna make that first. Okay, what is hope in general? Okay, and then what hope is it referring to on both sides? And let's just add here, is the hope of the tzaddikim different from the hope of the rashaim? And if so, how? And again, the fact that the word is the same this is the type of thing where, like, if you made an argument to me that the whole nature of what tzaddikim hope for, or the way that they hope, is different than rashaim, and that's why it uses two different words, then I'll be like, oh, good, that's a good interpretation for the two words. But for now, we'll assume that they're synonyms.
We also didn't
result-
ask about
the result of the hope is two different things. So it's saying like hope of the tzaddikim is joy, and then you would think that the opposite would be the hope of the rashaim is depression, sadness.
Okay, good.
What is it?
Okay, good. So how are the two halves opposites? Okay, sorry, let's put it this way. Okay. Oh, you know what? Should I shake the earth right now? We had an earth shaking Rabbeinu Yonah at one point. It was Rabbeinu Yonah. So okay, just basic methodology here. Okay. the way I was taught to approach Mishlei from Rabbi Moskowitz and also from Rabbeinu Yonah himself and the Ralbag and the Meiri is that most pasukim are opposites, right? But the question is every pasuk an opposite, right? So let me just show you this snippet of Rabbeinu Yonah. We're not going to do his whole interpretation right now, but he says, let me just clip it here. So Rabbeinu Yonah says something. I'm showing this to you now because it has to do with how we read the pasuk. Okay, so he says, hold on, I'm censoring the other part of this because we don't want to bias ourselves right now. Okay, so check this out, okay? Ki pa'amim b'hizacher midas hatzadik. Sometimes when it mentions the trait of the tzaddik, ein hahefech b'midas harasha niskar. The opposite of the traits of the rasha are not mentioned. Rak haklala al midaso. It only is just curses his trait. V'chein pi tzaddik yanuv chachma. For example, the mouth of the tzaddik speaks wisdom. V'lashon tahapuchos tikares. But a duplicitous tongue will be cut out. Okay, now he's not saying that it is not opposites, but he's saying that, in other words, he's allowing for the possibility that there might be opposites in the pasuk, but he's saying that it might not state the opposite. Okay, I guess this is not as earth-shattering as I thought because we do this a lot. So the reason why I'm bringing this in now is the question is like this: are the two halves opposites? Okay, if so, how is the joy in the first half the opposite of will perish in the second half? Okay, that was your question, Sarah?
Yeah.
Okay. And then Ricky, you had a question?
Yeah, I feel like we didn't really speak yet about Tovade. And also on
Oh, yeah.
that, I was wondering for each translation, first of all, it doesn't matter for each one, like which implication, I don't know, I feel like the implications would be different based on the translation that we would pick. And also, who is it talking about? Like, is it talking about specifically on the Rishaim or people around them or both of them?
Okay. Just what did you just say about the implications? I just missed that.
Just like about each one, because we have 3 Shorashim.
Okay,
so
you mean
would there
about
be a
each
difference?
meaning of Toved, you mean?
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and then the last thing you said, sorry, I was just a little slow to catch up. What was the last thing?
So is my brain now. The last thing I said was, who is it on? Like, is it just on the rasha or is it on everyone around him? Like, who is it speaking about?
You mean who is the object of or object of
Yeah,
Toved?
of the,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
Okay. Who is the object of Toved? Okay. Is it the Rishaim themselves or another party? Yeah. Or the hope, right? Or the hope. Or their hope or another party. Yeah, it doesn't make sense that it's the Rishaim themselves. Hold on. Can you read that? Tikos Rishaim Toved. No, I don't think it could be the Rishaim themselves. So is it? Wait, I got it mixed up. Hold on. I was so fixated on the word perish, lose, and destroy that I made this into a who. Doesn't it have to be their tikva? Their tikva will perish, or their tikva will be lost, or their tikva will be destroyed.
Yeah, that's how
Right?
I thought it was.
Okay, yeah.
I don't, does it have to be translated like that?
I think so because it's singular feminine, right?
Wait, Abigail, what'd you say?
Could it be like their hope will cause them to be destroyed?
So that's why I kind of had to look to the English to see. I don't know the conjugation of toved.
Toved, I'm pretty sure is acid for like a singular female.
Okay, that's what I thought also. Meaning, so it can't be that it will destroy them or cause them to be destroyed. I think that would be different.
Yeah, and on that was my question of why is in the first one it present tense and then the next half of it it's future tense.
Okay, that's a good one. Okay, so why is the first half in present tense and the second half in future tense? And again, that's the type of question also where, like, if there is a nuance, if there is, like, if we don't answer that question, I'm going to be fine with it. But that's the type of question where I'm going to be looking for a nuance there, you know? I'm smiling because I just had an idea, but okay. All right. I'm also smiling because I love Mishlei, but that goes without saying. Okay, other questions.
Yeah, I mean, this would be dependent on how you define hope, but how is hope and joy like? It was like the cause and effect of hope and joy.
Yeah, I think
It's a little
I
odd.
feel like we covered that in.
Oh, we did.
Yeah. What's the relationship between the hope of the tzaddikim and joy, right?
Oh.
Yeah. Did someone ask earlier, and I just didn't write it down, who is the audience of this pasuk? If not, here it is. Who's the audience of the pasuk? Because it's not clear. Yeah, I mean, it sounds like these tzaddikim are doing their thing. They don't need this pasuk. And it sounds like the Rishayim, I mean, typically we don't talk to Rishayim anyway, so like, who's this for? And I know what we've been saying for the last couple psukim, but let's not bring it up right now in case people have have forgotten, which would be good.
Wait, just
Also-
in general, are we
Yeah.
assuming that like they're in the same situation in terms of like their hope is like for the same thing, or are we assuming that?
Okay, so this is a good question. So what? I'm just trying to find out where to put this here. Let's put it here. Oh, it doesn't really matter. What decision-making scenario is this pasuk talking about? And I am taking a stand to this. As Rivki, I do think that we have always seen that it is talking about the same case, like scenario, because that's how you teach good and bad decision making. But the question is, what is that scenario?
I don't know.
And
if
that's
this-
gonna be a fundamental question, right? Because we can't really move until we know, like hope for what, like Mashiach, like like a rainy, like a sunny day, like yeah.
I don't know if this is necessarily something new, but it kind of seems very obvious, the statement. So like, what's new?
Okay, I mean, I see. That's funny. This is where like intuitions differ. That I don't see this as obvious simply because there's so many ways to read it. If it said that tzaddikim, if it said Rishayim hope to do evil, I'd be like, oh yeah, that's obvious. But now here's what I'll meet you halfway. Is from a Mishleic standpoint, this does seem to be pretty obvious if you read it as the hope of the tzaddikim will come true and therefore they'll be happy, and then the hope of the Rishayim will like not come to fruition and therefore they'll be destroyed. So the question then would be like, what's the chiddush? Okay, so well, I'm not going to add that because that's it's a good question, but since it's on every pasuk, then and since if you were making your list, Pina, then you could write this is obvious. I'm just gonna I'll trust everyone to like pounce on whatever interpretation we have and say that it's obvious if it's too obvious, because that's how we roll here. Okay, I think that about covers it, right?
Wait, I have another just question for in general. Do
Sure.
we have to just be talking about hope here, or because I was thinking there's no actual action being done. Like this is
Oh,
much
that's
more of a
interesting.
mindset. So do we have to just interpret it as hope, or can we like generalize more?
Well, it's interesting that your observation is good, that this is not describing any action. Okay, and that's why I'm going to actually add this here. What the pasuk, I'm going to say the pasuk doesn't even identify behavior. Okay, but the question is not like, I would not like the way you ask the question, Rivki, is like you're making the move of expanding hope. And I'm more inclined to make the move of saying that the focus of the pasuk is narrow. In other words, like before we assume that hope is broader than it actually is, like the first approach would be to say like maybe this is just talking about a mentality, So I'm not ruling out what you're saying. I'm just like I don't want to like incorporate that into the question itself. Okay, are we ready for thinking? Okay, so let us do what is our minhag to do. Minhag started by Tamar, which is to take a minute of thinking. Okay, a minute of silent thinking. And I guess you could interrupt if you have like a factual question. Okay, before we open the floor for ideas, I just have to tell you a story that someone shared, kind of an adorable story about the thinking minute. Is that this is someone I know who started listening to the specifically our Mishlei Shiurim, the Monday night ones, in the car with his son. I don't know if his son is like a teenager or like a preteen. And so like they got to the part where we do the minute of thinking, and like the son goes like, "Who just sits and thinks for a minute?" and it made me realize that like not only is it a practical thing, but like it's something that like I feel like in our world we take for granted, that like like usually we think for more than a minute, but but it's not something that people typically do. So it's good to that Tamar made that part of our like actual format. Okay, so what we do now is open the floor to half-baked ideas or individual answers to individual questions. If you have a full approach to the whole pasuk, or if you think you can answer all of them in one shot, hold off for now. Okay, we're just starting off with half-baked approaches or ideas.
I have one.
Go ahead.
Okay, so I hope I articulate this right, but I was thinking that we're talking about hope. So hope is already like assuming that we have something that brings us to that hope. Like it's just like hope. So I'm thinking about, and then I'm looking at the question of why is the first half in present tense and the second half in future tense. So what I'm thinking is whatever's sparking the hope of the tzaddikim is working. It is working right now, and it seems to be like a method that they have versus the rashayim, where their hope, it seems to be that their hope will be destroyed because no matter what methods they're using, they're just stumbling and falling. So that's what I have so far.
Okay, that's a really, really good idea. Okay. It's good in okay, we'll explore it in a second, okay? But it's good in several ways because it remind me about this if I forget. This is why I'm saying it now. Is Rabbeinu Yonah, I did not understand where Rabbeinu Yonah was coming from. And I think that that's what he's picking up on. I just was not thinking about the tense thing. Okay, so let's, and then the second reason why it's good is it happens to be very in line with a bunch of stuff I'm reading these days. So let's just explore that. So what Sarah's saying is that the reason why the first half is in the present tense is that the type of hope that they're engaged in is something that they are in the present getting right now. It's not a hope. Whereas what the Rishayim are doing is they're hoping, their hope is in the present, but the thing they're hoping for is in the future. Is that a fair summary?
Yeah.
Okay. So now the question, let's try to develop this a little bit. So what could that be for each side? Like, in other words, I guess it's easy what the Rishayim are. Let's start with the Rishayim because like that's I think that's gonna be easier, right? So why is it that their hope is going to be dashed, or perish or be lost or be destroyed?
Can I build off of what
Sure.
you're saying?
Yeah.
So it could be that the tzaddik. I mean, because I was thinking along the same lines. The tzaddik has a high level of confidence in what he's doing because he knows that naturally there will be positive outcomes in his lifestyle. Right, it's almost like there's an inherent security in how he is living his life, and and that it's almost like that's why I was very confused why I use hope. Hope is almost something like you don't have anything tangible, and it's or you don't have anything concrete, and it's something. It's like, all right, you just like hope for the best. Luck will be on my side, or whatever. But over here, it's almost like he's using hope in a way where it's like he already has it,
Yeah. So, let me, oh yeah, sorry. Yeah. Oh, by the way, just a reminder, I can only see 3 people at a time. So like either unmute or you could use like the hand raise feature. Let me just restate what Ariel is saying, and then we'll continue to develop this. But I'm torn about whether Ariel and Sarah are saying 2 different ideas. I mean, they're definitely on the same track, but Ariel, what you're saying reminds me of like I think I gave this analogy at some point last year where like if you have an expert poker player, okay, so the average poker player basically just like bets on the basis of greed and fear, okay, and doesn't really understand the math. But the expert poker players are doing it based on math and probability. And so even though and what they'll do is they know the math, and they know that if they keep on making the right bets and following the math, ultimately then it'll yield a good outcome. Okay, so the thing is that like their hope is for something, is attached to something in the present. They're, like you said, they're secure in their lifestyle. They're secure that I am using this system, and that in the present is giving me joy, even though it's vis-a-vis the future, meaning they are hoping for something. They do want good results in the future, but they know they're so secure in the chachma of what they're doing now that they know that it's virtually present right now. Whereas the guy who's just like making these wild bets is putting all of his hope on the fact that like that the guy's gonna like, you know, gonna deal him an ace of spades or whatever, you know, and like if that works, then he's elated, and if it doesn't work, then he's crushed.
Right.
Is that example in line with what you're saying, or am I misunderstanding what you're saying?
Yeah, no, it definitely is in line with my saying. And I just have a question on: do we have to read, you know, like he's having joy now? Like, can we read it?
No, you don't have to read it as now. The only reason why we
because-
read it as now is because it didn't use a verb in future tense. It just said, it just says the noun joy.
Yeah, because I'm kind of toying with the idea that it could be either or. It could be present,
Yeah,
and or the future.
yeah, you're right. That's a good reminder. We shouldn't read too much into the fact that it has to be present, but it is a really nice idea to do present.
Yeah.
Okay. Did anyone else want to help develop this idea? Again, just
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go Rivki, Abigail, and Tina. That was the order I heard them in.
So I think that there were really two things that came to mind, like when I was thinking about this pasuk, and I think like I was thinking about what hope actually is. And I was saying before, like it's really not like necessarily a decision or an action. It's more so like a mindset.
Okay, right.
So I was thinking that first of all, like it is very much a mindset, but not only is it a mindset, but it's also tied to reality. So I was thinking that for the tzaddik, that even though they both have a certain mindset of hope, but clearly the tzaddik is living more in line with reality and understands more about the decisions that he's making. And then mentally, even if he's making the right decisions, I feel like where hope comes in is when, like kind of like what we're saying now, that you really believe in your decisions and you know that that's going to be leading you to the best result. Whereas the rasha, clearly there's a miscommunication somewhere along the way that the tzaddik isn't having.
Okay, so I think I think that's good. I think the part that's clear to me is the rasha, that the rasha's hopes are going to be very unrealistic. Okay, and this is fresh in my mind because I just right before, actually no, I have 4 minutes left, almost completed a documentary about World War II, just going through the whole World War II. And you know, we've used this example a lot, but let me tell you this: Hitler had lots of crazy hopes, you know, especially towards the end, that just were completely disconnected from reality, you know, and that is a hallmark of the rasha, is that he'll attach his hopes to things that are just completely like only exist in his head, or the probabilities only exist in his head. So that's good. And then the tzaddik, I hear what you're saying, Rivki, in terms of like, but I think the lingo is getting in the way of like that his hopes are more in line with reality, and I want to try to be concrete about that, or at least like explain it. Like I get a sense of what you mean, but you know, but let's continue to flesh that out, because I think that's what we're doing. I think we are fleshing that out. Okay, so Avigail and Tina.
Okay, so I think that this is building off of Sarah's. I'm a little bit less sure now, but I was thinking, because we're translating it as hope is joy, I was thinking that it's like they're actually inherently this exact same thing. If you have the hope, then you have joy.
Okay.
It's the tzaddikim who literally have the joy because their hope is the joy and it's in line with their reality or whatever it is. And the wicked, they will never get it. It's perpetually being destroyed because they just cannot reach that joy. Okay.
So now I am more convinced that what you're saying is definitely Rabbeinu Yonah. Okay. So we're going to flag that to come back to after we develop this idea. And it's not unrelated, but like I'm pretty sure he is saying exactly what you're saying, or like you two would agree on how you're reading the pasuk. Okay, so we'll come back to that in a little while. Say what you said again for the second half, though. I missed that. You're just saying that their hope is not synonymous with
because the hope is joy, since they can never get that hope because it will be destroyed, and they just never have it in the present tense. They just can never have that. Like, their joy will not be a reality either. Like, they're constantly chasing, maybe.
Okay, they're constantly chasing it. Okay, right. Meaning they don't have this joy in the present tense because the way that their hope operates is that they're never going to have enough, or they're never going to attain what they want, or whatever, and therefore they won't get the joy.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that
Okay.
kind of works with any of the Toved.
Yeah. Okay, that's good. And by the way, I do have a feeling that the differences in our pasuk are really, and the chiddush of the pasuk is really going to stem from the first half. I feel like the second half is a much more of a common Mishlei idea that might just be like put for contrast. If someone does get a chiddush from the second half, then I'll be happy. But like, I'm happy enough if we just get from the first half. Okay, Penina, what are you gonna say?
So again, something similar, but a little bit different. The
Sure.
feeling of hope, like the hopes that a tzaddik has brings him joy. While the hope
okay, yeah.
of a rasha don't even bring him joy. And not only that, they'll be dashed in the future because they're not in line with reality.
Okay, so you know what? Just given what everyone's been saying, let's just read this Rabbeinu Yonah, okay? Because I feel like it's going to help crystallize the approaches that are set here. Now, it is a little long, and he has a couple different interpretations in it. Okay, so bear with me. We'll summarize as we go. Okay. So and keep your eye on the ball. The ball here being not the pasukim that he brings for support. Okay, the ball being like his statements of ideas. Okay, so he says like this: Tocheles tzadikim simcha. Oh, unless anyone else has anything else they wanted to add to this, what we're calling like Sarah's approach.
I said one thing, but it might be like a little far-fetched. I don't know. When I was first looking at Tochelet, is there any alternative translation that we might use, or like that's it?
Al HaTorah only had one, and it didn't even have like let me just show you those again. See, look, Tochelet, it just had one. For Tikva, it had hope, ground of hope, or things hoped for / outcome. So that leads me to believe that Tochelet is just a word for hope.
Oh, okay, fine. Because I was looking at it, I was thinking like shoresh, like maybe like the beginning, like lahatchil. So I was thinking
that's what Ariel said, I think, before you came on. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Okay. So that's
but I'm just relying on Al Torah for their shorashim, knowledge. Okay, so let's do this Rabbeinu Yonah, and again, it's as you can see, it's a little long, but I'm going to try to. I'll try to summarize as we go. Okay. Tocheles tzadikim simcha. Hine kasuf b'inyan hatayvos leosher ulekavod. Tocheles mimushacha machalas leiv. Okay, so regarding the desire for wealth and honor, the pasuk says in Mishlei 13:12, Tocheles mimushacha machalas leiv. A drawn out hope is a sickness of the mind. Okay, which plain pshat means that if your whole life revolves around seeking wealth or seeking honor, you're never going to get it, because the nature of those two things is infinite. You could always get more admiration or more glory, and you could always get more money. Okay, so it's going to make you sick. You're just going to be perpetually unhappy. Okay, if you need an elaboration on that, then read Sefer Koheles. Okay, tocheles hatzadikim enenu machlas leiv. But the hope of the tzadikim is not sickness of the mind. Chisasam v'simcha yimtza ba, because they will find joy and gladness in it, meaning in the hope itself, they will find joy and gladness. Ki tochaltam lo al kocham va'otem yadam, because their hope is not attached to their own might and power of their own hand. Velo al binasam, and it's not on their intellect, meaning we've seen this many times in Torah, right? Is that the tzaddikim realize that everything is dependent on Hashem, and it's not in their hands, and therefore when they succeed, it is because Hashem enabled them to succeed. And yeah, you have to use your mind and use your make the decisions within your power, but you can't take credit for it. Okay, so he says v'lo al binasam. Oh, sorry, v'lo al binasam yishanu, and they don't rely on their understanding. Ki al rachmei Hashem yisale, they rely on the mercies of God. Likewise, it is written, trust in Hashem with all your heart and do not rely on your own understanding. And they will not have anxiety when the hope is extended, meaning if they're hoping for something and they don't get it, that's not going to cause anxiety. Because they're not worried about a minimal amount of money, about only having a little bit of money. Kakasuv, as it is stated, tov ma'at b'yiras Hashem, as it says, a little bit is good with yiras Hashem. Okay, now this is the part that I'm saying is reflected in what Abigail and Penina and someone else was saying. Simcha yasigun min hatochelas al kol panim. They will get joy from the hope in any event. Ki hem smechim b'chol es. They are joyous at all times, okay, meaning in the present also. Al asher hisigu la'aroch tochaltam lelokim. On they're joyous at all times on the fact that they can literally arrange or present their hope, arrange their hope to God, v'lasum tikvasam lachazto, and to place their hope in his chesed. V'chol ma shenimshechas umis acheres tochaltam, and the more drawn out their hope is, and the more delayed and drawn out their hope is, him misangim al ha'avoda, asher yavdun es ha'elokim b'tochelas u'b'bitachon. They take pleasure, okay, that's misangim al ha'avoda, in the service that they serve God with, in their hope and their security. Okay, now let me just summarize that, because that's if it weren't for me hearing what you guys said, my reaction to this is really weird stuff. Okay, what he's saying is like this. Point number one we get, which is that if you hope for honor and wealth, then you're going to be disappointed. That's the second half of the pasuk. That's not a chiddush. Okay. Point number two, tzaddikim don't take credit for their own successes. They realize it's all dependent on God's mercy and kindness, and they don't rely on their own understanding and their own ability, right? They act according to, the limits of their knowledge and their limits of their ability, but then their hope, the results are not in their hands. Okay. That I understand. This part's the weird thing though. Okay. Is if they're not getting what they're hoping for, so not only are they not saddened, but they find joy in the activity of hoping to God and placing their trust in him, because that is a type of avodas Hashem. Okay.
Wait,
So
can I say something that reminds me of?
Yeah, sure.
That last point reminds me of in like our tefillah group. I remember you told us that like everything is up to Hashem, and that basically like we should be davening to be in line with his will. So I feel like that, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, okay, good. So I was also thinking of that, and I believe I quoted the Mishnah in Pirkei Avos that I can never quote perfectly by memory. Okay, that one. Hold on just a second. If someone knows how to say it, then you could say it while I'm looking it up. Hold on. Say Ritzonacha Kirtzono, or is it Asay? Okay, it's Pirkei Avos 2:4. Asay Ritzono Kirtzonecha Kadesh Yaseh Ritzonecha Kirtzono. Okay, make his will with a capital H like your will, or his desire like your desire, in order that he enact your will like his will. Is that the one you're referring to, Ricky? Of like getting your, if you make your actions in line with Hashem's will, then you're going to get what you want by definition. Or to put it in Epictetus's language in the Enchiridion, in the handbook, do not wish for things. Do not. Hold on. Where can I find this? Hold on. I'm just looking at my many Stoicism folders here. I want to read it because it's a good one. Let's see. Enchiridion. No, not enchilada. the enchilada thing came up. I don't know why. Handbook. If I can't find it, for some reason, my search is slow when I'm on Zoom. Give me like 5 seconds, and if I can't find it. Wish. Oh, here we go. Do not demand that things happen as you wish, but wish that they happen as they do happen, and all will be well. Okay. Which is a different version of this, just not stated in terms of Ratzon Hashem, So maybe that's what it's talking about here. Okay. Is that process of aligning your will with God's will, not knowing what is going to happen, realizing that it is a complete letting go of the results and realizing it's all in God's hands. That is an avoda. That's a type of avoda Hashem. It's an avoda shebalev. It's an avoda of the mind, but it is a type of avoda. And the tzaddikim obtain joy in doing that avoda, even though they're not getting what they want. Okay, and I'm going to I'll tell this story because it was an opportunity where I could have practiced it if I was on the level. So it just happens to be something that is like that works. So we were discussing before here, I came down with the horrible stomach bug that has been going around, making its rounds in Far Rockaway and West Hampstead and the Heights and other places. And I came down with it on the morning of Rosh Hashanah, the second morning of Rosh Hashanah. Okay, so I woke up extremely nauseous. Not going to go into detail, but extremely nauseous and dizzy to the point where I tried going to Hanetz and I had to turn around. I managed to daven somehow, and then I was just sitting in my chair next to the window, which was the only place that there was breeze. Okay, and like I could not move my head. I was so nauseous, and then my chavrusas came over, offered to learn with me, and I said, I just cannot think, and I think I think you should go. So they left, and I was sitting there with these waves of nausea periodically coming up and not knowing whether I'd be able to go to shul or not. Okay. And I think we can all agree that like davening Musaf Rosh Hashanah is a big deal, and shofar and all that other stuff, and like, I was just thinking about this stuff. So if I were a tzaddik, what would I do? Okay. So what I think my understanding according to Rabbeinu Yonah is like this is, of course, I'm hoping to be able to feel better so that I could feel better, and that so that I could go to shul and so that I could daven and I could hear a shofar, right? That's what I'm hoping. But I am realizing at this moment that that's not in my hands, okay? But what sounds like Rabbeinu Yonah is saying is that if I were a tzaddik, then I would take this situation where it's evident that this is not in my hands, and the process of accepting the Ratzon Hashem and putting my security in God would itself bring me joy. That process of working through it and realizing it's not in my hands, is going to bring me joy regardless of what the outcome is. Does that sound like what Rabbeinu Yonah is saying, or am I projecting? And remember, just interrupt me because I can't see if you're raising your hand.
I'm going to interrupt. I think it's a really nice idea, but I think on the more shot level, the hope itself is what's giving pleasure, right?
Yeah. Well, he says two things, right? He says, simcha yisigun mina tocheles. They get hope, they get joy from the hope. Al kol panim, okay? Ki hem smechim b'chol eis, because they're happy at all times. Asher hisigu la'aroch tochatim, because they get the opportunity to arrange their hope lelokim to God, or present it to God. V'lasum tikvasam l'chasto, and to place their hope in His kindness. And the more the thing they hope for is protracted and delayed. Now here's the part where I think I'm getting this from. Him misangim al ha'avoda. They derive pleasure from the avoda, asher yavdun es elokim, through which they serve God, bitocheles uva bitachon, in their hope and in their trust. So that's why I'm reading it as it sounds like he's saying that this process of hoping to God and putting your trust in God is an avoda, and engaging in that avoda gives them pleasure.
Yeah, I feel like what you're saying is like in line with what Rabbeinu Yonah is saying, because let's say like in the real world, if you think you're in a dangerous situation and then you realize that like something's really there that's protecting you or whatever it is, then like I feel like you really do have joy and there's like almost a relief from that. But like even more than that, if it's in advance, you know already like beforehand, if you have this bitachon, if you're like a tzaddik, then you have this already like ingrained in you almost.
Right, but let me just, I'm going to see, I know your point was not to your example. I just want to seize upon the example to make sure that we're on the same page. A tzaddik who is faced with a threat, okay, so let me do it the other way around. The rasha who's faced with a threat, his hope is that he will be saved. The tzaddik's hope, of course the tzaddik would prefer to be saved, right? But his trust in God is accepting Ratzon Hashem, even if that means whether Ratzon Hashem is that he be saved or whether Ratzon Hashem is that he perish. Is that?
Yeah, I mean,
okay,
that wasn't so good with my example, but yeah, because even if, let's say in my example, it wasn't so good because the outcome in that case from from like my little brain is like, oh, of course you want to be saved. But if you realize that ultimately whatever is the outcome, because it's God that controls the world, or therefore you're always in the better spot.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, everything that is happening is Ratzon Hashem, and no matter what is going to happen is going to be Ratzon Hashem. And if if you're attached to obtaining your ratzon, so then you could either attain it or not. Like, in other words, like, let me just be a good way to put it. Your ratzon is binary. Okay, either what you want comes about or it doesn't come about. Hashem's ratzon is not binary. Surprise, surprise, it's Yichud Hashem, you know. But no, I don't know if that's related to Yichud Hashem. But like, everything that happens is ratzon Hashem. So if you can manage to tap into that for your security, then it won't be outcome dependent. It'll be reality dependent. Whatever happens will be in line with his ratzon, and if you align your ratzon with that, it'll be in line with your ratzon.
This is like a really high level for like
yes,
a beginner of Mishlei.
Okay, I'm glad you said that, Naomi, because I want to read his next interpretation. He's not finished yet, by the way, but he gives one more interpretation, and this is a lower level, which is more in line with my way of learning Mishlei. And then I want to just really quickly connect it to Stoicism, okay, and then we can explore it more. Okay, so he says like this: Gam tuchal lafaresh tocheles. You could also explain hope to mean like this: In memushacha tochaltam ki krova yeshuasam lavo. So their hope is not drawn out because their salvation is close to come. Okay, probably because they're a tzaddik, so it is likelier that they're going to be saved. V'im lo yagia ha'inyan shemiachlim alav. Let's say the thing that they're hoping for does not come. Tihe tzitkas hatocheles siba leto'alos ulachasadim rabim v'nichbadim min ha'inyan asher biksha nafsham. Okay, so let's say the thing they want doesn't come. Nevertheless, the tzitkas hatocheles, the righteousness of their hope, will be a siba, a cause, leto'alos, for benefits, ulachasadim rabim, and acts of kindness, v'nichbadim, which are more distinguished, min ha'inyan asher biksha nafsham, than the thing that they were asking for. Kakasuv v'aboteach bar Hashem chesed yisov v'venu. As it says, one who trusts in Hashem, chesed will surround him. Okay, so what this is saying is that the first interpretation is saying basically that the tzaddik's hope is not attached to outcomes, okay? And therefore, no matter what happens, they get joy in putting their hope in Hashem. The second one is saying, no, the tzaddik's hope is still attached to outcomes, so he wants outcome A. But if outcome A doesn't happen, then outcome B, he will take joy in, because outcome B can lead to more benefits and more cheseds than even the thing that he got from outcome A. Okay, and I'll give you an example that is painful to some of us. Maybe the pain is still there, but like, you know, again, like when Shelhevet closed, right? Then that was and is a huge tragedy, right? But like, again, just speaking from just looking at this last year, if Shelhevet hadn't closed, then I would not have been able to engage in the types of learning and teaching that I engaged in over the course of this past year. Now, I'm not saying that, like, if I had a choice, which one's better, I have no idea which one's better. Like, I can't see the future. But the point is that the rasha, if he doesn't get what he wants, that's the end of the story. He's just crushed. If the tzaddik doesn't get what he wants, he takes the thing that he does get and then he converts it into to'alos ulchasadim rabim, into beneficial and into outcomes of benefits and chesed. Okay, and this is two levels of Stoicism, okay, which is this second interpretation of Rabbeinu Yonah represents the Stoic teaching of the obstacle is the way, which is that taking what is in your path that is an obstacle and making that into a something that you can use towards your goals. Okay, the first interpretation of Rabbeinu Yonah is a higher level of Stoicism called amor fati, which is love fate. So it's one thing where like you know, something bad happens to you and you use it to your advantage, but you don't love it. The higher level is where you actually get love and joy out of it, you know. And this is the same thing in the Rambam says this in the Mor Nevuchim at the end of his Pirush of Eov. He says that if you internalize the ideas of Eov, so then you will rejoice in Yisurin, you will rejoice in afflictions. Okay, rejoicing in afflictions is a very high level. Lower level is you use the afflictions as a means of tshuva, as a means of improving yourself, but you still really hate them, you know, or like they're really annoying and you prefer not to have them, you know. So I think those are two different levels. And Naomi, I think that's like what I meant when I said the second one I feel like is more within our grasp, like, okay, fine. I'm going to hope for a certain outcome from Hashem. I'm going to recognize that it's in Hashem's hands. And if I don't get it and I get something else instead, I'll look at what can I do with this thing that is still in line with Ratzon Hashem. Not taking joy in the fact that I'm not getting what I want. That's a very high level.
It's like Gamzu Letova.
Yes, right. This is Gamzu Letova for the you're talking about for the second one.
Yeah, but that's that's a pretty high level.
It is still a pretty high level, and I have noticed, by the way, and I'm not saying this as a an academic dissertation. I feel like Rabbeinu Yonah's ideas tend to have a higher bar than, say, for example, the Meiri. And I think that is an interesting thing in Mishlei in general. There's like more of a meta methodology question of how high of a bar do you assume that Mishlei is setting? For example, we've talked a lot about how, like, or not we, but like some of us, Pirkei Avos is about how to become a chassid. Mishlei does not deal with how to become a chassid. So if you were learning Mishlei in a way where it's like showing you how to become a chassid, I would say that that's a wrong reading of Mishlei. Like that's reading into the Sefer what it's not for. So, but within that, there's a whole range, and it sounds like Rabbeinu Yonah is on a much higher level. Maybe it's because he's learning that tzaddik is also a certain relationship with God, whereas we tend to learn tzaddik as being a certain level of relationship with justice and decision making. Whereas Tehillim, tzaddik is much more of a relationship with God.
Wait, I have a question.
Sure.
Is hope just a lower level of bitachon? Because I was trying to think what the differences are.
So the way I'm reading Rabbeinu Yonah, it sounds like he's using them interchangeably. He quotes these pasukim about B'tach Hashem b'chol levavecha. He switches it up with b'tochatim u'b'bitachon. There is a Rabbeinu Yonah. If you're curious in the question, okay, if you want to know Rabbeinu Yonah's levels of bitachon, look at Rabbeinu Yonah on Mishlei Gimel Hey, and he goes through all the levels of bitachon. I haven't been through that in years, and I can't remember if it's part of the Rabbeinu Yonah. Actually, let me just look for a second because I can reach my shelf. There is part of Rabbeinu Yonah that's missing. Hold on a second here. Yeah, he has like it's almost like an essay on bitachon in the middle of the parish of Mishlei. Oh, wait, I thought he has the levels. He definitely has this essay here. Yeah. So I'll have to look and see if he talks about hope. But just based on what we're saying here, it sounds like he's using the terms interchangeably. Okay, so let's do this. Taking what we got from Rabbeinu Yonah, let's try to combine this into a solid interpretation of our pasuk, just to put a bow on it. Okay, and then I think we have time to look at other interpretations or hear other interpretations. Okay, so Tochelas Tzadikim Simcha. What's the best way to translate it now that we have this here? Probably the hope of the tzaddikim brings joy, right? Because he's saying that they get joy from the hope itself, from engaging in rewiring their hope from outcomes to Hashem. Okay, and therefore, even when they don't get what they want, they will be in a state of joy. The tikvas Rishayim toved, so the hope of the Rishayim will perish, or will be lost. They're hoping for outcomes, and the outcomes will be lost. And it makes sense, the nuance, like Sarah started us off with, the tzaddikim are able to enjoy constant hope, constant joy, and that's reflected in the fact that it's in the present tense. Whereas the Rishayim's hope is outcome based, and therefore it's future oriented, and they're not going to get it because they're treating as though they're the ones who are in charge, and that they can control the outcomes. And of course, that's not going to work. And so let's just go through the Rishayim's mistakes. They do ascribe their success to themselves. Okay, they ascribe inordinate power to themselves and control. They ascribe inordinate chachma to their own minds, as if they know all the factors, and they have crazy desires, right? Their desires are unfulfillable. So of course they're going to perish.
I have a question.
So, yes.
Okay, I don't know if this is more like a nafkamina semantics kind of thing, but
sure.
I know Rabbeinu Yonah saying that they obtain the joy, but is it possible that like the hope itself is the joy?
The hope itself is the joy.
Like obtaining hope versus the hope and the joy.
Yeah, that's what I also understood it as. Like the state of hope brings them joy in the present and in the future.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. Yeah. I mean, again, he does kind of use both languages, right? He says, "Simcha yasigun min hatocheles." They get joy from the hope. That sounds like the way I was reading it. And then misangim al ha'avoda asher yavdu eselakim bitocheles ubibitachon. That the tocheles generates enjoyment, like, I'm not committed either way. Like I don't see I whether or not it's semantics, I think there's a better or worse in how you read the pasuk, but I think the idea is going to amount to practically the same thing, unless you see a difference.
But I think the difference is with the rasha, where like his hopes don't even give him joy in the present.
I see what you're saying. So if you emphasize that the hope is joy for the tzaddik, then the rasha's hope is not joy, and you get that idea. I see what you're saying. That does seem to be a better way to read it. Wait, hold on, Abigail, what do you say?
That's just why he would never be able to obtain the joy, because the hope would inherently be joy, and he can never have it because it's always in the future being
right.
lost.
Yeah, that's good. All right, yeah, you persuaded me. Yeah, Ariel.
Why isn't this pasuk using the terms chacham and cool?
Oh, that's a good question. So according to Rabbeinu Yonah, it does sound like he is learning tzaddik as having a certain relationship with God, and that's why it wouldn't be. That's why it is appropriate to use tzaddik. Whereas a chacham, you wouldn't necessarily get that.
Right, that's true.
Yeah.
Do you think that's why maybe he's forced into? Because I've been trying to think of like other possible ways of interpreting pasuk without God.
Yeah, I'll give you one. Okay, and this one is not so far off. Okay, but actually, I'll give you one in a second. Let's just see. Have we answered this to our satisfaction here?
Can I just say one thing?
Yeah.
I just feel like the end of the puzzle, like we were talking about trying to find like a chiddush, but I feel like we did, because we're saying it doesn't necessarily have to be this way, that the hopes of the Rishonim are lost. They cause themselves destruction with their own mindset.
Right.
I don't know if it's a chiddush or not, but that's
yeah. Definitely. I hear it. Like, I think there's the way I would express the chiddush. See, the non-chiddush is that they're not going to get what they want, right? That part, like, we know from elsewhere. I think the chiddush is that they have the wrong kind of hope, that in order to break out of their fate, they have to abandon that kind of hope. I want to think about it a little bit more, but yeah. Okay. So let's just make sure we answered all of our questions. We answered the difference between the two types of hope. We explained the relationship between the hope of the tzaddikim and their joy. We explained, according to Rabbeinu Yonah, why it says tzaddik and rasha. We don't need to define them other than like a relationship with God. Decision-making scenario. This is not talking about a specific decision-making scenario. It really is talking about like your orientation towards decision-making in general, right? The tzaddikim will make decisions, but their joy is not contingent on getting the outcomes that they desire. Are the two halves opposites? 100% opposites. What does I didn't even finish writing this mean? Yeah. This really doesn't matter. Why is the first half in present tense and the second half in future tense? Yeah, we answered that. And who's the audience of the pasuk? So I think the audience of the pasuk is any ideas about who the audience is? I think it's an old answer, but a good answer, legitimate one.
When we say like anyone in the middle.
Yeah, I think this is one of these pasukim which is holding up to us. This is what you can have if you become a tzaddik. You can have constant joy, and if you follow the path of the rasha, you're just setting yourself up for destruction and disappointment and precluding joy from yourself.
Wait, question for in general, you don't have to answer it now, but is a pasuk ever actually for the rasha?
No.
Yeah, I didn't think so. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Now, Ariel, let me give you what you want, okay? Radak, I think. Oh, I mean, he brings in Hashem a little bit here, but I think we the part we can get is good. Tochelas tzadikim simcha. The hope of the tzadikim is joy. Tochelas tzadikim tavo b'simcha. The hope of the tzadikim will come in joy. Ki lo ta'acher lavo. It will not be delayed in coming. So he's not learning that the hope is in the present. It just holds that it's going to come fast. And maybe that's why it's stated in the present. It's like almost immediate. Okay, here we go. Ki Hashem yitnena lahem. God will give it to them. Ki enam mevakshim ela davar tov v'shalom. What do they want? Goodness and peace. Okay. And then Radak says, "V'tikvas v'shayim toved ki enam misavim ela divrei avonos v'resha v'yivoshu misivram ki ein levavam shalim Hashem." They want iniquity and wickedness, and therefore their hope they'll be ashamed from not getting what they hope for, because their heart is not perfect with Hashem. So I don't know exactly. Hold on a second. Is that the one that I wanted? I think it is, but let me just look at a couple more. Yeah. So what it sounds like he's saying is not that you have to have this whole relationship with Hashem, but based on what the tzaddikim are hoping for, then they're sure to get it. Okay. And based on what did I say Rishon? What the tzaddikim are hoping for, they're sure to get it. And that's davar tov v'shalom. Okay. Now the question is, what does he mean?
I mean, maybe you could say that, the tzaddik's objective is for, tov v'shalom. Whatever it is, he's doing that, that's the objective.
Right.
And the truth of the matter is, like, anything building up to that, it obviously, there will be like a certain level of like, hoping that this will be, come to fruition, but like, it should just be a natural progression to that point, because, he'll have the, support of, his surroundings to achieve that.
Right. Yeah. And so I think this is more in line with our standard definition of tzaddik and rasha that has to do with his orientation towards the system, and that the tzaddik is always working within a realistic framework to improve those parts of the system in which he can have an influence, and he's going to get it. Because that's the nature of the systems, is that the systems want to be rehabilitated, and he'll get that. It, again, doesn't mean that he's going to the tzaddik's hope is realistic, even insofar as tov and shalom is concerned, so he'll get that.
Can I add a comment?
Yeah.
So I was thinking this was something similar to my idea. I'm kind of tied to current events with Afghanistan.
Yeah.
And I was thinking that these corrupt people who are leading a corrupt society, that they're obviously there's no way you could have an actual society that runs in this way.
Right.
Versus and I think that in the future, even if they think, today, America left or whatever it is, that in their eyes, they got what they want, but ultimately it's going to lead to destruction, versus tzaddikim and a society like that, not only will they be alive, because I think there's 3 levels almost, there's destruction, living, and then there's joy.
Right.
A real society is more than just surviving and not being destroyed, but it's actual joy and it's
thriving. Right. Yeah, that's a really good example. That's a really good example of a recent societal collapse that does seem to be doomed for destruction. Yeah. What else? Yeah.
Expand on.
Yeah, sure.
On the Radak for a moment.
Yeah.
You see that the rasha also, he's purely doing, his actions and his lifestyle is purely motivated because he wants to do it for himself, for selfish reasons.
Yeah, that is definitely true. And it is not, again, in Mishlei, it's not that selfishness is bad, it's that stupid selfishness is bad, right? And he is overly, he's selfish to the point where he's trampling on everyone else and destroying, just to supplement Avital's example, I just watched another full series on Netflix it's called, this one, if you want to, I don't know, I'm not a historian, but I found it interesting. It's called 9/11, I think, Turning Point in the War on Terror. And it's a history from 9/11 all the way through last month, in Afghanistan. And they were saying how when the United States was first training the Afghans, then it was so, they were so not they were so not in the framework of like building a society of like justice that like they would issue weapons to the Afghans, and the Afghans would just sell their weapons on the black market just to get money, like to use like for drugs, because, and not to blame them. I mean, they were in a messy situation beforehand, but like, and then the Taliban comes in now, and like they're just doing the same thing, only with organized corruption, and so like they're being selfish, but they're being selfish in a way that just undermines any good that can come to them, so yeah. But yes, he is being selfish, and that is going to be.
And what would happen? And what would happen? I mean, and also like, what hope will be destroyed in the future? I mean, what is that? I don't know if it really.
So we said it that the thing that we said that whatever it is that they're hoping for, and like Rabbeinu Yonah alluded to it when he said wealth and honor. And I just realized we did not finish reading the Rabbeinu Yonah. We're not reading the whole thing, but just this part. He says, "Tikvas Roshaim Toved behedar ha'inyan shemakavim alav." When they don't get the thing they're hoping for, Tia Tikvasam Ovedes, their hope will perish. Ein Sachar al Tikvasam, they won't get rewarded for their hope. Kilo al Yeshuas Hashem Batchu, they do not trust in the salvation of Hashem. So it sounds like he's just saying like the thing that they're hoping for, they're not going to get, and they don't get rewarded for their activity of hoping. Unlike the tzaddikim.
But my question is really more about like, meaning they could always, meaning like, will it fully distinguish their hope? Meaning like, can they always just get it back? Meaning, okay, fine. Like, he could have hope in one area and like it won't succeed, but he could have hope, in another area. Meaning,
see, I think that's the chiddush of Rabbeinu Yonah, is that as long as your hope is outcome based, then it will not succeed. Kal v'chomer, if you're hoping for things that are illusions, like I want to be wealthy, I want to be powerful, I want to be famous, and koshkein, if you're going about trying to obtain that hope through self-destructive or systemically destructive means, it's like you're just shooting yourself in all 3 feet, That's not a real idiom. I just made that up, but.
All right. So we're saying for the tzaddik, he has hope in the system versus the outcome, and the rasha has hope in the outcome.
Yeah, hope in his objectives in the outcome of like taking advantage of the system for his own power needs. And again, I'm not getting that from the Radak, by the way. I'm getting that from our definitions of tzaddik and rasha that we built up. But Radak is sparse.
Isn't that just a fool? Isn't that just a fool?
No, because the fool is not going to try to impose himself on the entire system. The fool is just going to be short-sighted in the immediate,
So what would happen? So when a fool thinks about the outcome without the system he's in, what would the differences be between the rasha and the fool?
That the fool is just going to be looking at, am I going to get an immediate benefit or avoid an immediate pain from this? And that's going to determine his actions. The rasha is going to be looking at, how can I take advantage of all of these particulars and rearrange them into a new system that serves my own, my own desire for power or greatness.
I see.
Yeah, Rivki.
Do you think that the Radak and Rabbeinu Yonah are saying like completely different approaches? Not completely.
Yeah, I don't know. And the thing that makes me wonder if Radak is nodding at Rabbeinu Yonah is by the Rishonim, he says, "Ki'in levavam shalem im Hashem." Their hearts are not whole with Hashem. Like you could say that that's what Rabbeinu Yonah meant when he said that they're not trusting in Hashem. I don't know. It's just that Rabbeinu Yonah takes this so far afield from like what we usually see in Mishlei that I would want to see more from the Radak along these lines for me to think that they're like in line with each other. Okay, so is this a good stopping place? Let's just quickly summarize the idea that we got, and then we can officially end. And then if there's any after party stuff, then we'll do that. So the hope of the tzaddikim will bring joy. In fact, let me just type this out. Oh, no, sorry. Well, what did we decide? Not will bring joy. The joy of the tzaddikim is in hope. Is that what we said?
Or the hope of the tzaddikim is joy.
Yeah, the hope of the tzaddikim is joy. The hope of the tzaddikim is joy. but the hope of the wicked will be lost. Okay. So we said that the main idea of the pasuk is that that there's two types of hope. There is outcome-based hope, where you hope to get a certain outcome, and if you don't get that outcome, then you are frustrated. And that's the type of hope that the Rishaim have, is that they want specific outcomes. Not only do they want specific outcomes, but their outcomes are intrinsically unattainable, like wealth and honor and fame and power and all this other stuff. And not only are they intrinsically unattainable, but they're Rishaim, so they're actively undermining their ability to either obtain or to sustain these things. So of course they're not going to get what they want. And the hope itself doesn't give them any joy. In fact, the hope itself gives them sickness, like the other pasuk that Rabbeinu Yonah mentioned, tocheles memushacha machalas lev, that they are sick every night with the fact that they're not getting what they want. So it's just a horrible life. Okay. In contrast, there's the hope of the tzaddikim, which we said is on either a high level or a very high level, where baseline, they realize that all they can control is their free will based on their limited knowledge and actions, but God is responsible for the outcomes. Okay. And success is not theirs, and their own power is not theirs. And they also, we didn't really emphasize this, by the way, they don't want the same crazy things that the rasha wants. This is where, Rivki, you can combine the Radak and the Rabbeinu Yonah, that they want something that is tov, they want shalom, they want davar muat, like Rabbeinu Yonah says, tov ma'at b'yiras Hashem, okay? And he says mute osher, like even with a little bit of money. So they want a very, very little. And even if they don't get that, and here's the chiddush, if they don't get that, their hope is not tied to outcomes. Their hope is tied to whatever Ratzon Hashem is, and they will get joy from the process of aligning their Ratzon with Ratzon Hashem. So they'll get joy no matter what. That's the highest level. And then you can take it one step lower, which is that if they don't get what they want, let's say they don't get the job that they want and they have to do like menial labor, they have to be a janitor. So they'll find opportunities for to'elas and chesed in the janitorial role, and that will give them simcha. So they're flexible in accepting the Ratzon Hashem in the sense that they're always looking for tzedek-based ways to engage in whatever outcome they have. And therefore, they're in a constant state of joy, and they don't suffer from all these ails of the Rishaim. Okay. Very
Question?
good. Yeah.
Does the tzaddik, so their hope have to be like materialistic and selfish and all these bad things, or can it just potentially be out of line with like what Hashem wants or out of line with reality? Like,
yeah. So here's a funny thing. Rabbeinu Yonah, when he talks about what tzaddikim want, usually emphasizes mitzvos, mitzvos and like, more Torah related things. I've been using these examples of worldly things because that's what he talks about, of the wealth, and the tov ma'at b'yiras Hashem, I think, is also about like wealth or material circumstances. Let me just look at that pasuk in its context for 1 second here. And so Nava, I think you're right that the tzaddikim's hope is going to be for those things, but maybe because the tzaddikim are being contrasted with the Rishaim in the same scenario, like with regards to worldly things, then it's easier. This is an easier illustration of their idea. Like the when it comes to wealth, the rasha wants to be the wealthiest man in the world. The rasha wants to be the wealthiest man in the world. But the tzaddik, when it comes to wealth, just is content with a little bit. It's like it's easier to see the contrast. Whereas if you said, for example, the rasha wants to be the wealthiest man in the world, and the tzaddik wants to learn Torah all day, so that's a nice idea about the tzaddik, but it's not going to really highlight the chiddush of the pasuk. Let me just look at this one pasuk here, 15, 16. Says. Tov ma'at b'yiras Hashem me'otzer rav umuhuma bo. Yeah, so our school translates this as better a little gained through fear of Hashem than a great treasure accompanied by turmoil. Next pasuk, tov aruchas yerek ve'av Hashem mishur avus v'sina bo. And the previous pasuk says koime ani rayim v'tov lev mishlei tami. All of these are about like material possessions, so that's probably why he's going that way. Okay, so let us stop the official shiur now, and I'm going to stop the recording. Stop recording. And thank you for joining us on this first time. And again, we won't have shiur until after Sukkot. Okay, but thanks for joining.